This week on your Old School RuneScape update, it's the week of questing as we discuss Children of the Sun and review our own questing adventures of the week. We also talk about changes to Kourend and the upcoming Varlamore rewards. Finally, we say goodbye to Leagues 4. This is the Old School RuneScape Update, Episode 10, recorded Saturday, January 13th, 2024. Sunny memories. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Old School Update. This week, Sirion and myself are here, as we are each and every week, and I don't think we planned on opening the year with so many quests, now did we?
No. This week came as a little bit of a nice New Year's surprise for sure.
Yeah, and of course, what we're talking about is Children of the Sun, and we'll go through that quest in just a moment. But typically, Update has a history of quest weeks. We do quest weeks. We love quest weeks. It's probably my favorite format of show to do. So I'm overjoyed to be able to share that with the Old School RuneScape listeners this week. But in any case, before the train gets too far down the track, just a quick reminder, show notes for this show can be found at update.show/os. We also have a community Discord at update.show/discord. You can find myself in game at Shane12088, and Sirion is in game spelled with a C. But all right, let's just dive right into this week. In that we thought that opening up the year, it's quest week, Children of the Sun, the opening quest to Varlamore. Obviously, we can't go there yet, but doing this quest now makes it so that as soon as Varlamore drops in the game, you can just walk right in there. What was your first thoughts upon landing in Varrock to pick up Children of the Sun?
Honestly, there's this. I like the originality of this quest. It is so obviously. I mean, it fits right within the other quests, but in many ways, it does a lot of things slightly differently. Like, the way you pick up the quest is not the adventurer going to like one of the NPCs like, please give me a quest. It's more like, you overhear some talking. You're like, hey, what's up with that? And what's that suspicious person with the big sack over his shoulder doing? And it almost gave me D&D vibes. So that's the kind of things like a D&D party comes in. Right.
And for clarification here, if the listeners are not aware, you play D&D, you DM a campaign or two. So that's interesting that it gave you those vibes. And maybe we're reading too much into that. Maybe that's kind of the storytelling we're in for when Varlamore arrives. I don't know. Well, maybe some of the hints we got in Children of the Sun might have an influence on that. You think that's the way to go with this kind of storytelling compared to what we've seen previously?
I don't know if that's the case necessarily, but the quest felt fresh.
Yeah, and the thing that really stood out to me with this is that it starts with a spy game where you're trying to figure out exactly what this guard is up to, and you ultimately find out that what's going to happen is that there's a group in Varrock that's aiming to attack the delegation coming in from Varlamore, and it's up to you.
Did you get caught?
I did, because it wasn't immediately clear. It wasn't immediately clear what I had to do. That I was supposed to follow them. I don't know if that was the case with you. It wasn't immediately clear.
No, I figured it out. I really liked it because these stealth sections, oh my goodness, like it's I feel it's a bane of any game that's not built around it. Like, it's always annoying, but I think this was well executed.
Yeah, and it wasn't. And I'll say it wasn't annoying stealth like the stealth in the Sorceress's Garden is annoying. If that comparison makes sense.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
no, I really enjoyed it, and it felt like a great little bit of in-play storytelling.
Yeah. And after, of course, you find find out what they've been up to, you have to report back to the sergeant, and the sergeant, tasked you, this ordinary citizen, with putting markings on the 4 guards that look out of place. And the way you do this is a bit of a, what's the difference game in trying to figure out, what's wrong with each of these guards in terms of how they look. I thought that was a nice touch because, normally we have the whole stereotypical thing that all the guards look unique in Varrock or wherever they might be. But this one you had to actually go and, just find something maybe a little bit different about them. And that was your key to finding who the people who were up to no good were. So
yeah, again, it's just a small little touch, but really well executed. Took me a moment to, find all of them. They were pretty well camouflaged, but once you understand it, it makes a lot of sense. And again, it sort of made sense in the story as well. I loved how they explain it. Like, oh, I grabbed what I could. We don't have 4 full outfits. You're like, oh, hey, that's a hint.
Yeah.
Like the whole thing just fit together so well.
Yeah. And then comes the interrogation scene, where the folks from Varlamore say that, they're going to be in charge of the interrogation, and, we're going to turn this person into a chicken.
No. We're not going to turn them into a chicken. We're going to cook them.
Cook them like a chicken, right?
Cook them. Well, cook them because, it's going to smell like chicken that way.
And here we thought 2024 RuneScape was done with the torture things. And to be fair, going way back in time, I always got a laugh when they did stuff like this in quests. I have no issue with it, and I think it's just kind of tongue in cheek, going back to how things used to be in what used to be called the golden age of questing. So,
but this whole thing was done tongue in cheek, right? And also I wouldn't mind if it genuinely was a little bit like that. Like, there were touches of this within the quest, not a lot, but especially a culture that's been so isolated for
they worship the sun
at this point. That worship the sun. Like, I would love for them to explore. I mean, they're not gonna go and completely explore like different values and different ethics, but to me, it makes total sense that a different society might put a very different value of life. And if you look back at the rituals of the Aztecs and the Mayans, which Varlamore seems to be somewhat inspired by, they're outright gruesome by modern standards. But I don't think that necessarily precludes them from using them in a world like this.
It's an interesting foil, is what it is, because we see how they might handle things in Varrock or Falador or even Ardoyan. As you head west, you get slightly different, of course, and in this case, it's 100% different. You have the worshipping of the sun, and that combined with everything else means that, okay, these guys are really going to be different. And that's something I think that RuneScape over the years has kind of struggled to move away from, and that it's how do you keep the game grounded to earth? Like, how do you keep the game's 2 feet on the ground, right? But still push the envelope of what's different without, going to, big gods and big battles. And I think Varlamore is where you get that, because that was the first thing I picked up from this quest, is that, okay, tons of intrigue and a tease of what Varlamore is like.
I'm gonna disagree with you there. I think the game has no problem being grounded. I think the game actually sticks too much in the stereotypes, right? Like, it's all very generic Western fantasy. Even if you look at Kourend, Great Kourend, right? Like, each of the factions is meant to be slightly different. And sure, like, Arceus looks very different from like Osidius, but if you look at, for example, Shazian, which is much more meant to be inspired on Asian cultures. I mean, the hint is in the name, and there's some architectural hints, but it fails to really feel alien in any sense. Like, even Arceus feels I mean, a little bit wacky because of the colors, but it
True.
doesn't feel alien.
And to be fair, what I meant by grounded was I meant grounded in what is traditional Gielan or RuneScape, not necessarily, can it break that mold?
I don't know. Like, even then, I really like the fact that with Varlamore we're going to see something. Like, we're going to see a biome, for the lack of better word, that is completely new to RuneScape. Like we've had jungle, we've had desert, we've had all the temporal like temperate climate, but we haven't really seen like savanna and you know sort of the more Central America
Right.
kind
Okay.
of climate and biome, and that to me is the most exciting thing about Varlamore.
And you know what? You know what? You can even see it on the way the delegation dresses.
Yeah.
Which I think you compare it in that scene with King Rold in there and the guards at the Varrock Square. You just compare the way they're dressed, and that tells the entire story of the differences here of how this looks. If we had to put it down to one picture, I think.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
and I don't think like RuneScape is not the type of game that does this a lot. I personally I would love this, but I would love for there to be some, we might think that having people fight in a coliseum to the death is a horrific thing, but
I love
in
that.
a different culture, that might be the greatest honor to stand there and
or the greatest sport.
Yeah, exactly. So I hope we're gonna see some of that. I don't think there will be quests and things specifically exploring this, but I hope it's present, and I hope it's
hinted
going
to
be
at least, yeah.
And I'm gonna hope that it's a place that feels lived in, and foreign, and alien.
Right, and I think what you would not want to do on that hand is like you said, then create the environment and biome. But then when you get there, have it feel like a desolate place. Make sure, like you said, it feels like an active, city or an active, countryside that you would be visiting, I think is what the success measure on relaying that will be if they can't do it through quest after quest.
I think the most, like, populated, yes, but lived in is more than just populated, right? It's also, the place shouldn't feel sterile.
Yeah.
There should be just things happening and things laying around and things visible, and there's some concept maps, for example, which show like giant skeletons in the desert referred to as the old ones. I'm like, okay, now you have mythology, now you have something mysterious that people talk about. That to me feels more lived in. And the fact that we have this whole idea of this culture centered around the sun and the moon, great start.
Yeah, agree. And I think you summed it up best, is that we're, in effect, getting excited to explore this thing, yet all we have been given is the feeling from seeing a few people, some concept art, and knowing, kind of what they worship and that sort of thing. And teeing all that up, even if it's not through quests, I still think speaks volumes to what OSRS is going to be doing in the coming months with it once Varlamore arrives. So, should we give this quest a rating out of 5? I feel like it was short, but you don't do quest weeks without a rating.
I don't know. Ratings are so linear. It's hard to say. I think the one thing that I find a little bit sad is I would have liked to see some kind of reward from this quest, like even if it was like a very small lamp, or like X marks the spot. Does X marks the spot give you anything actually? Now I don't know anymore.
That's a good question.
X marks the spot. Get you a lamp for 300 XP.
And 200
right?
coins. Yeah.
And 200 coins. I was hoping for something similar here, right? Like, I know 300 XP is nothing, but the fact you get nothing felt...
But even then, that's a minor complaint in the grand scheme of things. So...
Yeah?
Yeah.
True.
So that's an easy 4 out of 5 then. Or do you not agree?
Sure, I'll go with the 4 out of 5. It's very short, but it did everything it had to do well.
Exactly. Well, you would think that's the end of the questing this week, but it's not. It's not.
It wasn't for us.
It wasn't for us. No, we had our traditional experience where we do an old quest that's kind of, yeah, that's an old quest. Let's move on.
Oh, tell me about it, because this week
do you want
I did not...
Do you want to start with the Big Bird quest or the one we?
Yeah, no, let's start with the Big Bird quest. You're like, oh, it's the old quest. I don't like it, but I really didn't mind this week's old quest so much that we did.
And for what people wondering what we're talking about, the Big Bird quest being Eagle's Peak, of course.
Mm-hmm.
You surprised me putting this one up higher on the list, but I think this one was for an achievement diary. If I remember
trapping in general.
Box trapping in general, which you definitely want, for any kind of decent hunter training methods beyond the bird houses. And I mean, this quest, I remember it not being... I'm going to say it was better on this playthrough. And the one saving grace of this quest is that it wasn't fetch quest like Kingdom of Miscellanea was last week. And I think the good thing coming out of this quest is that at the core of it, it was a puzzle quest. One big puzzle.
I mean, last week we did the giant dwarf, which... well, speak of fetch quests, but no, exactly. It's to me, it struck the right balance. Like, I think if the quest was completely isolated within the peak and you didn't have to go out at all to do any fetching, it would have also not felt right. Like, it would feel less tied to the rest of the world. It would feel more like Elemental Workshop at that point.
Right. Right. And also consider the environment of this quest. You go in there, you're in an environment that is pretty much just 100% gray once you're inside the mountain. So I don't think that would be good either, just to be inside there for that amount of time.
Yeah.
But overall, I mean, Eagle's transport system good, box trap system good when it comes to rewards on this. It didn't feel as nearly as janky as it could have, being a quest from 2006, the first Hunter quest. So there's that. Another fun thing that we discovered when doing this is an Ian Gower quest. I don't know how many more quests he did after this, but 2006, at that point in time, you start to see the Gowers winding down their influence in the game. So there's that too. But, I mean, overall, not too bad, I'll say. But I don't know. I'm just gonna say this was just severely average for me. Is that how you describe it?
Severely average. Yeah, sure. I'll take it.
Yeah,
I'll take it. Yeah, no, I agree. Like, I didn't hate it. Yeah, exactly.
And we both love a good puzzle from time to time, right? So that was there for that too. But it does get kind of old after doing it. I think I did it last year on Fresh Start World, so it was kind of in my mind for that. So I kind of just used the guide for this because I remembered what the general idea of it was, and I just kind of wanted to get through it here on this. But I don't know that I have anything else left to say on Eagle's Peak. Do you?
It stands on itself, and all in all, I think it's a little bit of a forgettable quest.
That's true.
But
that's true.
Not so. Not in a negative way.
Yeah, it's something you do. It's something that's integral to the hunter skill, and then you move on from it after that.
Yeah.
So. But it wasn't forgettable, and I don't think will be forgettable for a long time.
Huh.
Temple of the Eye. And it's interesting how this quest worked its way into our list, because I wanted a runecrafting training method that wasn't, of course, ZMI and wasn't, of course, running between altars. So that's, of course, Guardians of the Rift. And, we look and, we haven't done Temple of the Eye yet. It only needs 10 runecraft, the Abyss mini quest.
Yeah, it was one of the things, like, it's been on my radars for, like, months to do it, but it just never got bumped high enough on the list.
I'm glad we did it after the show has started, because, I think after Garden of Death, this is probably in my top 3 of new old school quests that I've done.
Okay. You say after Garden of Death, this is your top three, which means if I can count, we're missing one. What's the third one in the top three?
I don't know. I just don't want to, say this 1 second and then have something wonderful come out at some point, 3 weeks down the line and have to put that at 3. So that's why I'm saying this is a top 3.
Okay.
So it's just in that very high echelon there. And the thing for me with these is that it starts with a good mystery. It starts with something small and kind of hints towards bigger and bigger things. And, you make some discoveries along the way. In this case, learning that you're trying to help a faction opposite of the ZMI. And it just kind of snowballs from there, doesn't it?
Yeah, I love that it falls. It doesn't fall in the stereotypical World Guardian thing of you help someone and then oh no, it was all one big complot, like one big conspiracy.
And to be fair, that's the first one of the first things you said in this quest is that Wizard Purston is sus.
Yes. Oh, I still think so. But I also I think we are being like a double agent, like fully intentional here.
Yeah, because you have to go talk to the damn Mage of Zamorak and then the guy in the Abyss for this quest to aid you with your nefarious purposes in their eyes. So
yeah, and then Wizard Cedrador becomes like a little bit suspicious, and you have to explain it. Like it all fits together so well, but it feels. I never felt like my character was doing something that I wouldn't have done myself. Like the dissonance I get. Like this is what some quests have done, especially in RS3 recently, where I sort of get completely blindsided by my character all of a sudden doing something completely strange, but everything here was on point and it made sense and it flowed nicely. And it hinted at bigger things going on, but it didn't try and raise the stakes to the world is going to end if we don't solve this.
Yeah. And that's, I think, where we get to the visions of the past. And, we go into the...
Oh, my goodness.
But hang on. I just got to tell the listeners about our entrance into the underwater temple at first. So we're walking in there, and, you see this pattern on the ground, and you say that's the Stone of Jazz, and I say, I mean, it's similar. I'll give you a maybe on that.
There's a vague similarity to the Stone of Jazz, maybe. Yes.
And then, lo and behold, the next scene of the quest, you're taken into this vision of the past of this mysterious stone. 2 voices, Justice here, Zachariah, and Justice here, Elia, who discuss guarding the stone, which is interesting because we've never seen, in the past, in RS3 at least, where Stone of Jazz is very prominent, humans guarding the stone like that. That, of course, was the Dragonkin. And I found this part very interesting because I'm wondering if those names, Zachariah and Elia, are the real names of the people, or if they're aliases for maybe, some figures more powerful that are actually guarding the stone in this case. I don't know who that would be, because you got to remember that Old School doesn't have While Gothic Sleeps.
No, and I mean, this might be hot take. Please don't cancel me, but I think I prefer the introduction of the Stone of Jazz in this quest.
It's a lot smaller.
To how it was introduced in While Gothic Sleeps.
Right.
I almost wish that this quest existed in RS3 and was a requirement for While Gothic Sleeps there, and it had sort of adjusted to incorporate it, because this is a much gentler and a much more organic introduction, and I love it.
And it works because it allows the player to be part of the mystery of it, and your player just randomly blurts out jazz, and people who are aware of the RuneScape lore will know the significance of this, but your character and the people around you in universe have no idea of how significant this is.
This is the first time in my memory that a name of an elder god has been mentioned in old school, at least from what we've seen.
I think so. And just to mention it to the
we
listeners,
haven't done all the Majorat stuff, so there might be a bunch of reference to Ma there. So please don't judge us on that. But
yeah, that was exactly what I was going to say on that in terms of old school RuneScape elder gods. And this is why this quest, just ranks so high with me, is that it starts off dealing with something so mundane, and then we get to this thing that we know is huge, of course, but still this quest manages to keep it within the bounds of a short introductory, what is in effect a tutorializing quest for the Guardians of the Rift minigame, which I think is
love that
perfect.
section as well.
Yeah,
I think that was really well explained.
Oh yeah. I mean,
and after having done some actual Guardians of the Rift, it is reasonably representative of what you do during the minigame itself. So
yeah, and that's quintessential. I have to say, modern old school RuneScape is that there's a good design behind something, whether it be a skilling aspect or something even like a quest. They tutorialize it well, and then you're able to go and execute that out in the Guardians of the Rift minigame after the fact. So overall, as I mentioned, a very wonderful quest, and was just so happy to see the way they handled something that in effect changed the RuneScape 3 world and kept it within the confines of this quest.
Yeah,
which I think has been something
I'm looking forward to a sequel. I
Ooh.
don't know.
Okay.
It's a requirement for Desert Treasure 2, so maybe Desert Treasure 2 resolves some of the threads that have started here, but I don't know. I wouldn't mind a direct sequel to this for sure. I mean, we haven't seen the last of Wizard. What's her name? Pretzel? Preston?
Pretzel?
Pretzel.
I almost called her Preston, but it's Purston.
Purston, there you go. Wizard Purston. Yeah, I don't think we've seen the last of it.
Yeah, that's right. All right. Perfect. And aside from questing, there's other things that we've been up to.
I mean, speaking of Guardians of the Rift,
I've
actually done some Guardians of the Rift on some of the Mass Worlds. It's not so bad. It's weird to call it like a D&D or a minigame, because really, it's a skilling boss.
Oh. So you'd say it's closer. So it's closer to Wintertoad or Zolcano than it is to some of the actual, D&Ds out there. Okay.
Yeah, for sure. It's you're not reducing health of something, you're rather charging up, but to me it's just an inversion of the health mechanic in a sense, and you're still defending against the monsters that are invading, so there is some risk. You're not taking any damage. There's a few differences from a normal boss, but it feels like one in many ways. And could I do it for hours at end? Would I look forward to doing it hours and then? Maybe not, but I could do sessions of this. I could see getting high rune crafting levels through this. And
how's the XP per hour with where you're at right now?
It really depends, because it comes down to what runes you end up crafting. I have no idea what my rune crafting XP per hour was.
Okay, fair enough.
Fair enough. But I played it for 2, maybe 3 hours, I think, and I got from 40 to 48 runecraft, so that's not so bad. Yeah,
that's not so bad given the fact that you'd be running natures for hours upon days there with that if you were doing that. Well, cosmics first, then into natures after that. So that's good.
Mm-hmm.
That's good. And we always go back in time to where the best two methods of runecrafting were either the ZMI altar or nature rune running with runners in the jungles of Kourend. So this is a good third wave for that. That doesn't involve those, and I'm sure it's a lot less click intensive too, relatively speaking.
Yeah, it's I wouldn't quite call it AFK-able, but once you get to the hang of it, it is. Yeah, it's on par with Winter Toad. I know you've done Winter Toad.
Yeah.
I think that's reasonably on par. It's maybe a little bit more clicking because it is active play in the end. You do need to go and go to altars, make runes, go back. Like you're almost continuously moving with some moments of downtime in the middle, but it's better than classic runecraft for sure.
Wonderful. Anything else this week that you'd like to report on?
Not really. I've been all over the place. I'm honestly been all over the place. I thought I would sort of like back off from RS after leagues, but honestly, not really. Still be playing a lot. Been training a bunch of combat. Been training up doing my herb runs again. Because
we need money.
Yeah, exactly. We need money, but also my farming and my hunter XP for my bird houses as well. I started doing farming contracts. Like I said, I've been all over the place with this.
Right on. Well, I haven't been all over the place. After I got back from leagues, I went straight square to one place, and that was the Ammonite crabs on Fossil Island.
Oh boy, yeah, I spent a bunch of time there getting angry over aggro mechanics and people doing herbivore messing up my Ammonite crabs.
I don't even care about the herbivore people at this point, because I've gone from level 60 attack to 69 attack, level 51 to 60 strength, and level 45 to 60 defense. And the reason for that is that after coming back from leagues, I had a Slayer task that I wanted to knock out because it was going to give me 2 levels, and it was trolls, and I was like, oh my god, this is painful doing Slayer with these combat stats. So I have it in my head, and I know this won't be a thing in old school. I want to emphasize this. I know this won't be a thing. I want to get to a point where I can look at things and have them die. I know that won't be a thing, but I just need to be more powerful.
Yeah, especially coming back from leagues, it's looking at my max hit. It's just sad.
Right, and that's why I'm going for 70 attack, which will get me a whip, and from there we can get 70 strength, 70 defense, and start saving up for a Barrows set or 2, because I know there's a few quests down the line that could severely benefit from having a Guffin set, and even Slayer could benefit from having that too. So it's just a good general area of requirements to do, and I think after that's done, I'm probably going to knock out the magic and ranged requirements that I need for questing as well, just because I've come to the realization, and maybe this is my old school PVM that I did on leagues sneaking into the equation too, that I really don't want bad combat stats if I can avoid it. Obviously they won't be as good as they were on leagues because of the modifiers and whatnot, but I definitely want to get ahead of this and just get some combat stats out of the way. So that's what I've been up to primarily. Nothing much else to write home about on that.
No, I mean, I'm in the same boat. I want to get some base stats in there. I got my range as well. Like my 50 range has been a huge upgrade, honestly. You get the accumulator in the cape slot. You get the imbued magic short bow, which is basically best in slot until you get some of the more expensive stuff. With the arrows, as well as blue dragonhide. Throw that into the mix. That's all been great. I think I need to make a massive jump to like 70 ranged until I get the next big upgrade. Which would probably
be, I think would probably be, weapon wise cheapest at that point. Probably the Karl's crossbow, right?
Yeah, something like
Though
that.
it's a
I don't.
two-handed one, so I don't know if you want to
That's
do
a
that.
two-handed one, so you probably want like either you want probably the Armadillo one or the Dragon Hunter
Expensive,
one.
though.
They are expensive, yeah. And there's a rune crossbow you could get at 61 ranged, but eh, it. I'll probably get it because it's going to be super useful for killing dragons and
Yeah, and it's
such.
not
Where you
going
need
to
to shoot
obviously
them.
have the staying power that it did in Leagues, right? So,
No,
but it's still going to be good to have.
but that's why I'm actually going to do some actual Slayer tasks because I need to unlock broad bolts to
Right.
get those
To
going.
use those.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right. We also, of course, have some news on the devblog side front this week, and in addition to the Children of the Sun quest that came out, we have the Kourend changes that arrived, removing the Favour system. We happy about this? Or, I mean, are you happy about this? I know I'm happy about it.
I've come to peace with it.
Okay. What part don't you like?
Existed. I liked that it told part of the story of the continent, of the strife between the different houses, the competition between them. I like that it told that through a game mechanic. I am a huge fan of what is it? Show don't tell. But then through like gameplay. And this took that away. At the same time, it's already been hollowed out before, and it was
with the Kourend redesign, right?
Yeah, exactly. Where it probably wasn't really getting the mileage out of the level of inconvenience it was getting anymore. I'm not a huge fan of how they redistributed the rewards. That to me feels a little bit arbitrary in some places. I think you might particularly. I think one of the things is now behind the easy task set, which I know you're gonna be.
I mean, easy task sets are fine.
Yeah, but
which
like,
one are
you?
Which one are you talking about with that? Is that the disease-free patch?
That might be. Let's see. Let's see if the wiki has been updated yet, and I can probably see it.
Because from my perspective,
the cooking range, the cooking range in Osidious Kitchen, which reduces your burn rate by 5%. That used to be 100% Osidious Favour, and that's now behind the easy diary.
That's not that much. That's not that big of a problem. No, it's not.
And the disease-free patches is also easy rewards.
Yeah, that's not that big of a problem, and I think that kind of makes sense for there. And if I'm being 100% honest, they could have probably moved those things to medium or even hard based on what they offer. But I'm aware of the fact that Kourend is in effect designed to be, a new old school experience for people who might be just starting the game and say, hey, you know what classic RuneScape looks like. Well, this is what a RuneScape experience would look like if we designed it in the 2010s when it arrived. So I can see the onboarding with that.
I'm happy for the fact that I don't have to max out Shasian Favour. I was not looking forward to doing all the organized crime, but I had done all the other ones to 100%, and it really wasn't that big of a deal. It was a bit of a grind, but it really wasn't that big of a deal. So, look, it is what it is. Like I said, I've come to peace with it. I understand the reason behind it.
Yeah, and I think comparing the original blog to what we have here, I think the biggest thing that we're all going to benefit from with this is the transport changes. And this is the one thing I wanted to highlight with this that's going to be different right off the bat. Minecarts no longer need unlocking, but they're going to be behind the Forsaken Tower quest. They also added new minecart stations to Kingstown, the Farming Guild, the Kourend Woodland, Wintertote, the Shasian Wall, and near the Tithe Farm.
Yeah, I think they might have overdone it a little bit with the minecarts. That being said, I have to admit that in today and yesterday, I've been doing a bunch of Tithe Farm and running around the continent doing tasks. spent the money on unlocking free travel with them, and it's quite convenient.
Yeah. Oh, we also, speaking of money, we need to go and get our money back from the Arceus fairy ring. Okay, you did.
Yeah, I
still have to do that then.
Yeah.
Okay. Also, a new fairy ring in the Hosidius Vinery. So
that's nice. That was before I unlocked the farming guild, and specifically the spirit tree in the farming guild. That was my banking spot with Fairy's Flight in leagues because of the leprechaun right next to the bank.
Okay. Well, I mean, I feel like these changes are here. I don't feel like they're going to break the game, and I feel like they just flow nicely into it, so I don't think there's much else that we have to say about these right now.
Nope.
Varlamore changes in terms of some of the things that were happening with in particular, the bladed moon. It's getting shelved because it competes too closely with the Avernic Defender, and as they say, big accuracy isn't easy to understand. And these were changes that were made before this even went to poll, just based on measuring the community. Is my sense here that this is the PvP community thinking, or speaking rather, and in general, outside of the PvP community, these changes were just seen as, a little bit too massive in terms of blurring the line between some of the existing rewards in the game? That's how I'm understanding it.
I don't know. This was, for me, my initial response was that one of sort of annoyance. I'm like, grow up, the game gets, things get better in the game, and especially that level range between
we were really interested
70,
in having that offhand.
I'm very interested in it, but also we need to admit the game is getting pretty saturated. It's going to be really hard to add new content and not get in the way of any existing content.
Yeah.
That's almost impossible. So we need to get to the point where we can accept that some of the old content might become obsolete or less powerful when compared to the new stuff.
That's rational. That's you speaking rationally. But in the TLDR, it says that it's perhaps too strong when paired with the Dragon Dagger special attack and has the potential to displace the Dragon Claws.
Look, that's fair. That's fair. I understand it. Like I said, I'm a little bit annoyed by it. I hope it's not going to be an endless thing that keeps being shelved. It's the same with Ruinous Powers, right? Can we not have any nice things? At the same time, thinking about it, let's assume this did go to poll, right?
Yeah.
Either it passes because my guess is that most people vote in favor of most things.
Yeah, the bulk of the players, let's just say.
Yes,
exactly. Your core OS player base.
So if that happened, and there were these problems that were pointed out by the community, you get the whole complaint of everything always passes the polls, why are we even polling, right?
That was on the survey.
Which already happens, to be honest.
Yeah.
People already complain about that. On the other hand, maybe this was a really controversial change, and this would not have made the threshold for being passed, and now we're dealing with a piece of content that the community doesn't like. How are you gonna fix that? How are you gonna change it and re-poll it so that you can still add it to the game? That's a really awkward situation.
Yeah, and that's why I say PvP community, because I remember the level range where PvP gear, really starts to sing. So it kind of makes sense from that angle, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, like you said, the bulk of the core player base is probably wanted this.
Yeah, so I'm basically thinking that Jager's made the right call, given the community response, to shelve this and keep this back. And at this point, I'm not going to keep my hopes up. Project Rebalance has just become even more important.
Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it. And, leaning directly into the whole Project Rebalance and some of the zeros that we talked about previously, that's where we go to the glaive Ralos, where they said, hey, we're actually going to do a bit of a redesign on this and pull a slightly different version of it, because the way we had it previously means that, well, now, based on how things work in old school RuneScape, if you hit something, you can hit it or you can miss it. However, with this, you can also hit and roll a 0. And when that successful hit is rolling between 0% and 50% damage, it increases your chances to roll 0s. So that's something that they are fixing with the Glaive of Ralos. And, I honestly think that this one will pass. If it doesn't, for some reason, if question 1 on this poll doesn't pass, I'll have other things that I'm scratching my head about, but I feel like that's a a no-brainer at this point. So
yeah.
You have anything else on that, or should I move on to the Echo Crystals?
Let's move on.
Yeah, so the Echo Crystals were pitched as a consumable that could be socketed into a pair of Guardian boots, but based off of this, they feel that the Takket Zil, and as they quote, its ugly stepsisters, the Odium and Maledictin wards, are a perfect fit where Echo Crystals will be. So with this, they ask, should Echo Crystals be able to be used on these items instead of the initial one that was talked about in the blog? And if you combine them with the shields, it would add a 3x3 AoE recoil effect and consume a charge for each recoil activation, as well as having a +2 prayer bonus. And for me, this is actually really interesting to see how AoE recoil would work in multi-combat zones, specifically for combat styles that don't have AoE, like melee. So I want to see if this goes in, and I think I'd be a user of this, probably.
I think, honestly, it makes sense, the change they're proposing. I think it's a fair way for them to act on the feedback and make a change. So,
yeah, I'll be voting yes on that one. And then just some minor changes to the Sunfire runes to make it so that they interact more with rune crafting altars like we'd expect. Either the standard rune crafting altars or the Arceus altars or what have you. And they'll also scale with your rune craft level. This one isn't going to be pulled, and this is just a change that they're rolling in with this. I feel like that's a no-brainer probably too. So minor changes on that front.
Yeah.
No,
all in all, I think, and like what I really like is that it shows that even if something gets pulled and passes, they are not beyond taking the feedback on board and making changes.
Yeah, especially changes that need to be done for balance. They'll just do them in the case of, Sunfire and Echo, or Sunfire at least. So,
yeah, I'm still really, it's such a exciting reward space to me, those runes. So I'm So far, Varlamore is shaping up to be super exciting.
Indeed.
And despite the Bladed Moon sort of being shelved, that hasn't really undermined my.
No, it hasn't. So, leagues also ended this week. I think that's how we wanted to end the show. Just some last minute thoughts on this. I don't know if you want to go first or if you want me to.
Yeah. It's yeah. I finished at 29k points.
So that's Adamant.
Exact. Yeah. Adamant rank. Honestly, really liked it. It I had not expected the way it felt when it ended. Like, it felt so weird, sort of declaring I'm done with it and logging out of the character, knowing full well that that's it, right?
Okay.
Because that's such an un-RuneScapey thing, right?
True.
Like, there's always... And this was like, this is it. Just I spent 7 days of my life working on this character, and I got a bunch of points. That's it. To me, that felt weird.
That was going to be the thing that I was going to be the most concerned about. 100% being honest in that, am I going to be able to leave this character knowing, that's it? I get a few cosmetics out of this and we go on our happy, merry way. And, I was fine with that. And that's, like I said earlier in the show, why I threw myself into combat. But
there's a weird sort of attachment you grow to your character if you play it that much, I guess. And I was sort of attached to it in its fun little way. Yeah.
Okay.
No, I mean, like I said, I had a blast with it. Not all my points transferred over. I might have to create a support ticket for that. It didn't sync across correctly. The high scores are correct, but my league reward points aren't. But beyond that, we'll always have the memories, I guess.
That's true. That's true. That's a good way of looking at it.
Mm-hmm.
Good way of looking at it. For me, I went into this not knowing whether or not I'd like it. I'm glad to. I'm glad to have done it. And like you said, I have the memories along the way. I, of course, was worried about if I'd, miss spending the time on the main character, but it was fun enough that wasn't an issue. My biggest regrets that I would say with leagues I've talked to you a bit about is that, I kind of did it, just willy-nilly as, this sounds fun. I'm going to go this way, might do this along the way. For folks who aren't aware, in other games, I am what could be described as a meta slave. And, I honestly think if I had done that maybe in leagues, I might have had a bit more fun with it than I did. So that's something to consider if there's ever another opportunity like that again in the future. And I probably would have, changed a few relics along the way because, as has been documented on the show before, I don't like task sets and I don't like clue scrolls. Yet I went with the clue scroll relic, and there's a whole bunch of points behind it. Maybe it was the right move.
But the clue scroll relic was the meta, so you're contradicting yourself there.
Right, and that's why I picked it, because I saw the amount of points that were there, but it wasn't fun. So I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you and I stand into this very differently. I don't really care much for the meta. I don't care about doing things the best or the right way as long as I have fun. It's just not worth burning myself out doing something I dislike. Just to get that squeeze that extra little bit of XP out of
right.
it. Yeah, I mean, that's a great question for you if Leagues comes back along next time, whether you're going to do that. Because like I said, I think the clue relic was really the meta because there were so many points behind that. So many points from doing clue scrolls, and it was so much easier with that relic. I think if you went for the points, it's probably was the best way to go. But
yeah, because the other option, I think, that was the one where we had Infernal Gathering and Ruinous Powers, I think. And I think Infernal Gathering, would have been nice to have, but you're not going to get, you wouldn't have got that many points from it. So
it would have helped you maybe, but yeah.
Yeah. But like you say, if there's another opportunity going forward, depending on what the rule set is, what the tasks are, things might be different.
Bloodthirsty. Sorry, the third one was Infernal Gathering, Bloodthirsty.
Right. Wow.
Bloodthirsty was also pretty decent. If you were going to do a lot of combat, you could get a lot out of that as well. But
yeah. All right. Well, that's in the rearview window now, and we had a number of quests this week. We got back into the main game, and this is I think the template folks can expect going forward. Obviously, won't be as much quests because we won't have a new quest each and every week as we progress through this. But hopefully, if only, that's right. And we say if only, and maybe people might not be aware of this. We're part of this thing called Clan Quest. If you need a clan, you like questing, guest in the chat, and then after that you can go through the invite process if you need a clan. So we highly recommend that, of course, because we like questing. But in any case, I think that pretty much brings us to the end of this edition of the Old School RuneScape update. I'll just say again, if you want to subscribe to the podcast, that's the best way to get it. just visit update.show/os. Click on the links for any of our episodes that we have out there to the various podcast listening platforms. And with that, we'll be back next week for another episode of the Old School RuneScape Update. See you then, everybody. Take care.
Bye-bye.